looking in my mirror thinking about, wow, you know, is everything cool, everything's fine? And then it just went bang.
Oh, Mika Häkkinen! Mika Häkkinen collides and into the tyres, out of the race, no points! Listen to the horns, watch the flags, listen to the cheers. Eddie Irvine wins in Germany.
Forma 1 sporthírek a Danubius Rádióban a Mobil Oil Hungary támogatásával.
Mika Häkkinen szerezte meg, mögötte Eddie Irvine, Coulthard, Barrichello volt a sorrend.
Welcome to the impressive Natural Bowl surrounding the Hungaroring on the outskirts of Budapest. We're all set for the qualifying hour for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Hello there, good morning. Now we're enjoying a fantastic sequence of races ever since those gloom and doom merchants condemned Formula One as boring and predictable after the Spanish Grand Prix at the end of May. And now there's the genuine prospect of a British world champion. Ireland's Eddie Irvine goes for his third victory on the bounce this weekend. Mika Salo, his Ferrari teammate, replacing the injured Michael Schumacher, supported him superbly last time out at Hockenheim.
Mika Häkkinen gets away well, so does Frentzen, slots into second place, and Salo is sprinting up on the left and taking second position. Ferrari and off goes Pedro Diniz into the tyre barrier. Barrichello goes through and takes Heinz-Harald Frentzen and fourth position.
Damon bouncing across the grass. Watch his front wing. Does he keep the front wing? Just about, yes. I think he got away with that one, Damon.
Into the garage goes Rubens Barrichello out of the race.
Oh no, that's a bit of Coulthard's front wing gone missing.
And the McLaren mechanics are out of the pit lane. There is the new nose, which is going to go onto David Coulthard's car. Damon Hill retires from the German Grand Prix.
Watch this. This is that's a novel way to overtake somebody, David. David deciding, I'm going to outbrake you somewhere, somehow. I'm coming through, get out of my way.
Irvine's got to get out before Frentzen to keep track position, and he does it.
There's a fuel rig problem here at McLaren. They're having to change over to Coulthard's fuel rig, look. They didn't get any fuel in it.
This is terrible for McLaren. They're losing time all the time, and there's a chance that Eddie Irvine will move into the lead. 24 seconds. He's lost at least 14 seconds.
Salo leads the German Grand Prix, pursued by
Eddie Irvine
and Frentzen, and Häkkinen will appear from the left-hand side of your screen any moment now as he comes out of the pit lane.
David Coulthard gets a 10-second penalty. Is this a bad race for McLaren? Mika Häkkinen! Mika Häkkinen collides and into the tyres, just as Michael Schumacher did at Silverstone. Out of the race, no points. And meantime, Eddie Irvine has got ahead of Mika Salo into the lead.
That's Johnny just retiring, I think.
Oh.
Johnny Herbert's luck, unbelievable.
Listen to the horns, watch the flags, listen to the cheers. Eddie Irvine wins in Germany for Ferrari, his second successive victory, his third of the year.
McLaren dare not misfire again. Irvine now has an 8-point lead over the reigning champion Häkkinen. He scored just 10 points in the last 4 races. Frentzen third, and then Michael Schumacher, still hoping to return at Monza in a month's time. Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher. In the constructors, the reliable Ferraris 16 points ahead of McLaren, an identical gap between Jordan and Williams, and Benetton hoping for a big improvement in the last 6 races. Hello there, welcome to the ITV studio. The Hungaroring, always hot and dusty, business as usual, track temperature 37 degrees. Now then, Tony Jardine, if those McLarens don't get it right, they're right in the old goulash, aren't they?
I think they need some of the local Bulgars' lucky heather or something. Norbert Hauger said we didn't lose the last 2 races. You know, we handed them over to the opposition. Ferrari believe differently. They say that they're really putting them under pressure. Eddie Irvine still can't believe that he's leading the World Championship the way it is. His chief mechanic put a bet on at 100 to 1 at the beginning of the year for £35. He stands to win about £35,000 if he wins at the end, and he is hoping for another British world champion. Why not?
Yeah, let's hope for a Brit on top at the end of it all. Well, now let's take a closer look at the Hungaroring. A real total contrast to Hockenheim, tight, twisting corners, and a real tyre wrecker as well. Exhausting for the drivers, wrestling with those steering wheels, and more often than not, driving in extreme temperatures. Let's call in Martin Brundle.
We're right in the heart of turn 1. Arrive at the end of the pit straight at 180 miles an hour, over the blind crest, brake hard and bring it down in 3rd gear to 80 miles an hour just here. In fact, this is a pretty typical cross-section of this Hungaroring circuit. Starts with a rain gully. You can just hook your tyre in there and help you around the corner. Moving on to quite a grippy part of the racetrack. You can see the black here as the tyre rubbers lay down on the circuit. Then a lot of bits and pieces of rubber that's flicked off during the course of the running. Moving on to a dusty, dirty part of the racetrack where you can see the skid marks of the cars flying off the road into the scenery. There really is only one area to be on this corner, the sweet spot on the inside. And Mika Häkkinen finds it nicely. Hard on the throttle now, a short squirt down to turn 2, up to 140 miles an hour. It's downhill in the braking. He's trying to be smooth on the throttle, but it's so bumpy, his foot is bouncing around. Turn 3, don't bother lifting the power, and up to 175 miles an hour for the unsighted turn 4. Down 2 gears, a little bit of curb on the inside, right the outside one. Turn 5, 85 miles an hour, 3rd gear. It's a long, long right-hander. Be patient, then floor the throttle. More and more you see Formula 1 cars climbing all over the curbs, defining new limits to the racetrack. Häkkinen's a pretty good example of that. Here we are down at turn 6 and 7. And these sawtooth curbs are just unbelievable. Look, here's my mobile phone. I can actually lose it completely in the bottom of this curb. Remembering, of course, that the front ride out of a Formula 1 car is something less than ½ an inch. They clamber across here, bouncing off down towards the next left-hander. Well, as you saw back at turn 4, unsighted corners are quite a feature around here. None more so than turn 12, where you can tend to run wide on the way in. And if you do, you arrive in this zone. Look at the damage and carnage going on here. Scars on the curbs from the under tray of the car. They're probably £10,000 or more. Moving on to this sort of rally stage area. Rocks. We've seen a lot of punctures recently, and it's hardly surprising, is it? They're all over the place. If you really get it wrong, you're into the gravel trap. It's a pretty motley collection of gravel, a lot of sharp edges. At best, it does a few £1,000 damage to the paintwork. At worst, it can rip the front wing off. No such problems for Mika Häkkinen. He's into turn 13. You can brake very, very late. He gets the car in nicely. And now he steers the rear end almost on the throttle over the nasty bump into the last corner. Turn 14, 80 miles an hour, long right-hander, only grip on the inside again, running wide up that curve, into the short start, finish straight, 77 laps, it's Manning.
More from Martin Brundle coming up in a few moments' time. So then Eddie Irvine leads the championship. The bookmakers, by the way, have suspended betting on the individual title until that Michael Schumacher situation is resolved. And as Tony there has been saying, if you'd have fancied Fast Eddie at the start of the season, they'd have given you around 25 to 1. It really has been a remarkable charge for glory. Here's Louise Goodman.
There were joyous scenes in the Hockenheim pit lane. Small wonder Ferrari had twice the reason to celebrate. It was an unexpected 1-2 and a third career win for Eddie Irvine.
It was a very funny situation to be in. I seemed to be sitting on top of the hill looking down on everyone, you know, just playing chess, wondering where the pieces were going to fit. It was obvious Barrichello was on a two-stop race and he was stuck, so he was out of the race. And Hakkinen sort of got away initially and then stopped and started lapping in the 48s. And, you know, I was quite capable of going into the 47s, and I did a few times whenever I needed to. So it was a weird race. And then obviously when he had a problem at the pit stop, it threw the race wide open.
1 metre down, 1 to go. Race leader Salo was the next target.
I caught up with Mika and I read it and I said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to keep pushing or do you want me to back off? And they said, and then they came back to me and said, Mika's going to let you through. So that made life easy.
What do you feel like when you drove past him?
It was good and it was bad, you know. It would have been much nicer to have won the race, you know, on my own, but Mika did a blinding job and, you know, I needed his help and he gave it, so it was much appreciated.
Now that you've tasted life as a number one, do you think you could or would be happy to go back to being Schumacher's number two?
That's a leading question. I think you'd have to say it'd be difficult, but at the same time it'd be difficult to go back down the grid a bit as well. You got to weigh up the options and see which one's going to hurt least.
You've always said that being a number two in a Ferrari is better than being a number one in anything else other than a McLaren. Do you still stand by that?
You have to say at the minute that's true, but maybe the times they're changing. You know, Jordan are coming up, Stewart are coming up, and these teams are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the future. That's for sure. Whether it's time to jump ship or not now, I don't know.
Sounds like you've actually been questioning it, though.
Oh yeah, I've questioned it every year. Every year, Eddie Jordan's rang me up, you know, to speak about coming back, and I never felt it was the right time to do it. We'll just have to wait and see.
So for now, Eddie's happy to leave the speculation to others. He's clearly lapping up the attention and has just one thing on his mind.
It's a chance of a lifetime to win the championship for Ferrari. You know, Italy and Ferrari have waited too long for the championship, and hopefully I'm good enough to do the job.
Sure he is. Eddie Irvine quickest in the second session yesterday. Hakkinen and Coulthard 1 and 2 in both sessions this morning. Watching that, Tony, do you get the impression that Fast Eddie's on his bike from Ferrari?
I think he is weighing up his options, as he said. He is the most sought-after man in Formula One at the moment. I think that he signed some sort of an agreement to go to what will become the Jaguar team. But at the same time, he's still seeing if Ferrari can possibly give him equal status, because that would be the best thing for him. But I don't think that Schumacher would relinquish his number one till 2002, and that's what he's got.
Jaguar team now the current Stewart team, but Eddie Irvine is relishing the extra responsibility he's got at the moment.
Yeah, he is, and he's taken to, already this year, he's taken his driving to new heights, new powers of concentration. He's learned a heck of a lot from Schumacher, how to climb over the curbs, and that's why his stock is so high. The guy is just climbing and climbing, getting better and better.
Absolutely. Well, very much like Eddie Irvine, Michael Schumacher has really enhanced his reputation. Ralf Schumacher, I should say, has really enhanced his reputation this season. He was wild and a bit erratic in the first half of last season, driving that Jordan, but he's really carried the Williams single-handed this time round. In fact, team boss Frank Williams has even compared him to the legendary Nigel Mansell. High praise indeed.
Probably we've got a bit of a star. He has surprised us with his race performance. They are very, very strong races in which he has demonstrated great mental and physical strength, like his brother.
Emerging from a shadow like Michael Schumacher's is not easy, but younger brother Ralph has done it with a vengeance. After 2 years learning the limits by overreaching them at Jordan, he's had a magnificent start at Williams, with 7 points finishes from the first 10 races. Ralph's performances are all the more remarkable when you consider how he's had to come through the field. 8th is the highest he's qualified, but time after time this year, he's got strong results in a disappointing Williams car, with which his teammate Alex Zanardi has achieved nothing. Ralph has always been fast, but now he's added one thing he lacked: consistency.
As you go through the Formula One seasons, you learn more and more and more, and you get more settled. But at the end of the day, I think we had a very unreliable car at the beginning of last year, and I did mistakes as well by risking too much and getting the time or a quick time out of the car, going back to 98. And I think, you know, I always was quite consistent, but obviously since I'm here at Williams, everything is better for me, and I don't know why really.
If you look at the monitors and watch his split times, usually every lap is a tenth or 2/10 quicker than the preceding lap, and that occurs for probably 30 to 60% of the laps in any race. And that's how his brother wins races, just being able to get 100% of the car's ability and his ability for most laps of the race without getting tired mentally or physically.
In one way it's more interesting and more to learn for me, and as long as I score points with doing that, I'm quite happy, but it would make we wouldn't make it ourselves a lot easier by qualifying more on the front, yeah.
Personally, I think he reminds me of Nigel in a number of important areas, but above all, he is just remorseless, unforgiving in his performance in a race.
When I signed for Williams, I knew that there was a difficult time in front of me, basically. I mean, with the Supertech engine for this year and starting with the BMW engine next year.
He's trudging across a rather barren, empty desert presently. And all these young drivers are desperate to win races and to break their duck. And Ralph, clearly looking over his shoulder, must say to himself, why did I leave Jordan? Doing a better job than us so far this year. But he has taken a long-term view, and I hope, and I think he's got strong confidence in that decision.
I fancy the remorseless Ralf Schumacher to have a good weekend here in Hungary. Well, now the second lesson in Martin Brundle's Formula One driving school. Martin given the freedom of Silverstone in a Jordan to reveal exactly what goes on inside that driver's cockpit, and he's driven close to 160 Grand Prix, our Martin, so he knows what he's talking about. Today, it's all about the starts.
Welcome to the grid here at Silverstone. Now the start is often your best chance of overtaking in Formula One, and of course of losing places too.
Go! Good start by Mika Häkkinen. He's through, he's past Schumacher and Coulthard. Terrible start for the Ferraris.
There's over 17,000 brake horsepower waiting here on the grid as the 22 cars line up to depart. It's a technical procedure, and as ever, not quite as straightforward as it first seems.
I'm coming onto the grid now, down to first gear. Take neutral. There's my number on the side of the racetrack. There's where my grid slot is going to be. Pull in towards the white box. Line the front tyre up with the yellow line.
Basically, there's three ways of getting these cars off the line. The first one is what I call granny leaving the supermarket. Minimum revs, minimum wheel spin, and unfortunately a big chance of stalling the engine. But believe me, it's the best way of getting one of these cars up to speed.
Okay, we're waiting patiently on the line. The first red light is on. So I pull, I'm in first gear. The lights are building up. I'm going to put some revs on. Everybody around me is going crazy. And just a tiny bit of wheel spin.
Heading down to the first corner cautiously with cold front tyres. Let's watch it again. I'm holding the clutch down with my left hand, about 5,000 or 6,000 RPM. Release the clutch gently now, just balance a small amount of throttle. Now watch, I short shift into second gear with the right hand and floor the throttle. Option 2, the Boy Racer. All the revs on the rev limiter, drop the clutch, spin the wheels, 50 quid's worth of rubber on the racetrack. Looks good, feels good, sounds good, but it's not the best way. Clunking into first gear, there it goes. Putting about 14,000 RPM on the engine. Drop the clutch violently, the rear tyres light up. What a hooligan on the rev limiter. The engine builders hate me as I head down to Cops. Now watch it again. Right foot on the throttle, left foot gently holding the car on the brake. Swap the pedals over. Look at those rear tyres working overtime. I'm having to correct the car even though it's in a straight line. Finally, the option they all have to take in the end, the control freak approach. Around 10,000 RPM from the engine, drop the clutch, A little bit of wheel spin, blend out the throttle, control that wheel spin, hook the rear tyres up and go. It's the best way in the end.
I take first. Yes, I've got first. Try to put 12,000 revs on. There's the lights. Are we ready to go? There's a nice little bit of wheel spin. Control the throttle.
So I didn't take too much out of the rear tyres or the clutch. I didn't stall the car, and we got away well down to turn 1. Let's look at it in slow motion replay. Granny versus Boy Racer and the Control Freak. Getting away well. Look how hard I'm working at the steering wheel of the Boy Racer car. Granny and Control Freak doing well. Let's see who gets to the first corner first. Look at the right-hand front tyre. There's a red mark on the curb. Granny is the winner, closely followed by Control Freak. Well, that's the right way to do it, but it can very easily go wrong. It's a very delicate operation.
Into first gear. Yes, I'm happy. Have I got enough revs on? Everything's going crazy around me. Oh, no.
You may say, how can these highly paid drivers stall their engine? I don't do that, but it's surprisingly easy to do in a Formula 1 car. An F1 engine has very little torque and inertia at low RPM. This is a normal start, drop the clutch, and the engine just dies. If you do stall the car on the line, you're torn between two options: sticking your hand out of the cockpit to warn the other drivers, or burying your head and waiting for the impact. But there's even more to this starting business than that. There's so many other factors. How hot is the track? How sticky are your tyres? How much downforce are you running? How much fuel have you got in the car? Is it on an uphill slope or a downhill slope, the start line? You just have to get a feel for it to get it right.
Little hooligan he is, isn't he? Love that granny start. Another chance to see that, by the way, in our build-up to the Hungarian Grand Prix from 12:15 tomorrow. Well, now the latest news from the world of Formula 1. By their standards, Benetton have had a pretty poor season, but their top driver has given them a real boost. Here's James once again.
Giancarlo Fisichella has announced that he is to stay at Benetton for next season. The 26-year-old Roman has had his work cut out this year to wring results from a very slow car. Second in Canada, his only real reward. Fisichella clearly has faith that Benetton will be able to reverse the decline, which set in since it won the world title back in 1995. Just to prove that one swallow does make a summer in the world of Formula 1, Ferrari stand-in Mika Salo's stellar drive in Germany has brought the previously unemployed Finn 6 offers of a drive for next year. Most interesting is one from Stuart Ford, shortly to be renamed Jaguar, and another one from Sauber. The Swiss team announced this weekend that it will again use Ferrari engines, which it badges as Petronas, next year, despite the hefty price tag of over $12 million. Meanwhile, Prost has ended speculation by confirming that it will continue to use Peugeot engines in the year 2000. It's certain, however, to lose the services of Jarno Trulli. Performance clauses mean the Italian is free to leave if Prost does not score massive points this weekend. The Jordan contract is ready to sign. And the format of race weekends could change next year. Bernie Ecclestone is keen to reintroduce qualifying on Fridays. The times from Friday would be added to Saturday times to give the grid positions.
Qualifying coming your way live in 5 minutes' time. Now there's been a real bang in one of the first session today involving Jean Alesi and the Sauber. Tony, let's have a look at it, and a bit of a heavy one for him.
Yeah,
wasn't
he was on a flying lap there, and he came up down to turn 240 miles per hour, and there was Pedro de la Rosa going very slowly, having just come out of the pits. The wheel came off, right-hand front wheel. Now they're meant to be tethered as well. A very hard thump indeed. Rolling wheel into the track, and Eddie Irvine just slows down to miss that offending wheel.
Yeah, he's been to hospital, he's come back, he's got a bit of a damaged lower leg, but he's intending to take part in qualifying. Another driver in the wars as well this morning, and he's talking now to Louise.
Right, Jim, the Formula 1 driver's been keeping the local casualty department very busy this morning. Giancarlo, you had a trip to the hospital today. A problem with your eye, I understand.
Yeah, I had some problem in my eyes, in the right eyes. But now I'm okay. I have just a little problem when I close the eyes. And I lost the 2 sessions. I just done 1 run at the end of the 2nd session, so I had not time to improve the setup. But I feel quite confident to be in the top 10.
Hope it goes well. Thanks, Giancarlo.
Let's hope so. Well, how's Eddie Irvine going to go? How's Damon Hill? Terrific record here in Hungary. And what about Häkkinen and Coulthard? We're going to find out in a few minutes' time.
beim Qualifikationstraining, die ersten, wird man natürlich besonders vorsichtig angehen müssen. Denn wenn man dann wechselt, verliert man nach ca. 20 Minuten, weil dieses Auto hier ist genau auf Damon Hill bestimmt, mit Federn, allem drum und dran. Natürlich eine ganz andere Bodenfreiheit, als sie Heinz-Harald Frentzen zum Beispiel wünscht. Und von daher wird gerade er und all diejenigen, die kein TK auf sich abgestimmt haben, etwas Probleme haben, dann das zu machen. Von daher erstmal Vorsicht. Und von hier gebe ich jetzt einstweilen zu den Kommentatoren, oben zu Christian Danner und Heiko Wasser.
Und wir sehen hier noch einmal Blicke in die Sauberbox. Das ist ein Lenkrad, das da steht. Und logischerweise sind die Kameras der ungarischen Kollegen primär bei der Sauberbox, weil man natürlich sehen möchte, was passiert mit Jean Alesi, wie geht's ihm, humpelt er noch. Das jetzt Blicke auf die vollbesetzten Tribünen und wieder mal das Phänomen wie im letzten Jahr, viele finnische Fans. Im letzten Jahr waren 20.000 Finnen in Ungarn. Und die würden gerne haben, dass sich dieses WM-Klassement, das wir eingeblendet sehen, wieder zugunsten von Mika Häkkinen korrigiert, dass er nämlich an Eddie Irvine wieder vorbeikommt. Im Moment hat er 8 Punkte Rückstand.
Es ist immer eine sehr internationale Atmosphäre hier in Budapest, viele Urlauber da. Und du hast recht, viele Skandinavier und die feiern natürlich nicht nur für Mika Häkkinen, auch für Mika Salo.
Die deutschen Fans, die müssen auf Michael Schumacher verzichten und können sich entscheiden, ob sie Herrn Frentzen anfeuern oder, was ich glaube, viele schwenken um auf den kleinen Bruder, auf Ralf, der steht jetzt bei Kai.
Der kleine Bruder, Mensch, der ist so groß wie ich. Ralf Schumacher, wir haben eben drüber gesprochen, in der Startaufstellung oftmals hinten und dann lief es immer ganz gut. Aber ich denke, hier wird es ja wahrscheinlich doch ein bisschen wichtiger, weiter vorne zu stehen. Wie sehen Sie das auf dem Kurs?
Das auf jeden Fall, aber bis auf Weiteres sieht das nicht ganz so aus, als wenn es passieren würde gleich. Aber wir haben noch was gefunden. Ich hoffe, dass wir einigermaßen weit vorne stehen, aber ich habe so das Gefühl, dass es eher wieder so wird wie die vorherigen Rennen.
Was ist das Problem denn? Hockenheim war ja eine Top-Speed.
Piloten soll heißen Hill und Frentzen, Fisichella und Wurz sowie Diniz und Alesi bei Sauber auf weich, alle anderen auf hart, wobei man hier auch schon wieder sagen muss.
Sylvester Stallone, part of a huge crowd at the Hungaroring, apparently searching for a few quid to finance that Formula One movie. And he, like everybody else, all set for the qualifying hour. The seconds have already started to tick away. Historically, you know, you have to start in the top 3 to conquer this place. And let's say good afternoon to Martin Brundle and to Murray Walker. Hi, Murray.
Hi, Jim. Good afternoon, everybody. Are you a Ferrari fan? I have some very bad news for you. This morning, Eddie Irvine, the winner of the last 2 Grand Prix, was 11th fastest behind Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard, fastest and second fastest. His teammate, Mika Salo, who finished second so brilliantly in Germany, was 15th fastest. That's the bad news. Here's the good news. They were using yesterday's tyres, and they used them all yesterday, and they used them today. I am expecting some real fireworks when Irvine and Salo, with the reputation of Ferrari and Italy, not to mention their own, riding on what happens here this afternoon as far as the race and the World Championship is concerned, come out onto this track, and it is very hot. The track temperature is 37 degrees. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think it's interesting on the Ferrari issue. Why have they run the same tyres over 2 days? Makes no sense to me at all. They wouldn't be trying to do a one-stop strategy idea, I don't think. I mean, they've done 30-odd laps on those tyres, half the Grand Prix distance roughly. But I do know, just having spoken to a few of the drivers, that when you go from the very old tyres to fresh tyres, the balance of the car changes enormously, i.e. you get more grip front to rear, whatever, and you have to change the car quite significantly. And I'm a bit surprised they committed themselves down that route. Not least, of course, because we saw Irvine off the road 2 or 3 times this morning, struggling to find any grip with the old tyres. The strategy on that one, I haven't quite got my head around yet.
Well, time will tell, like the next 58 minutes. We're 2 minutes into the session already. I don't think the track temperature is going to go up any more. As I said, it was 37 degrees. It's critical as far as performance is concerned. Since Martin was talking about tyres, I will pick it up. Bridgestone, as usual, have got 2 different compounds here, but only for the second time this year they've got the soft tyre and an extra soft tyre. Only 3 teams have opted to use that extra soft tyre in qualifying, and therefore the race tomorrow. It's mandatory that they use in the race what they used in qualifying. They are Benetton, Jordan and Sauber, as we watch Ricardo Zonta, the Brazilian driver, joining the circuit. And the BARs have been reliable thus far, and this morning Jacques Villeneuve was 6th fastest.
Yes, but we've also seen these cars backwards in the gravel trap, or 7, 8 times, I would think, over the last 2 days. If I was driving now, I think I'd be out on the racetrack, I have to say. There's a lot of dirt and dust around here. When we were doing our track guide yesterday, we showed you some of the stuff, some of the rallycross areas and the rocks and the gravel that lays around here. And the more the cars run, the more that seems to get kicked up onto the racetrack. And I'd be surprised if the front runners don't come out onto the track sooner rather than later. But I think I'd fancy just getting out there within 3 or 4 minutes. The first run is a problem here. It's a very dusty bowl that we're in. Probably 50, 60,000 people here, a lot of movement, helicopters, cars and trucks. And you do get dust settling on the racetrack. It is worth just letting 2 or 3 cars go out and clear those deposits away. Then you need to get out there and get a lap in the bag. And Coulthard looks like he's certainly preparing to do something like that.
Yes, with the leg protectors on, you notice they sit in that very, very narrow cockpit and their legs bounce about enormously. When a Lacey went off this morning, incidentally at just about the point that Ricardo Zonta is at now, that's where a Lacey went off. He went into the Armco on the left there, knocked off the right front wheel and was complaining about pain from his right leg. So they took him to the medical centre, put him in the helicopter, flew him to hospital, x-rayed him. He's perfectly all right. He's back here and hopefully taking part in qualifying this afternoon. Now, Zonta out on the track.
Yes, it's easy to say it looks a bit of an overreaction. I mean, Lacey had what I would call quite a small accident, really, but everybody seemed to be rushing around. And it seems like a different, stronger initiative these days. Drivers are very much treated as if they may well be seriously injured until it's proven otherwise. And you have to say, I think that aspect of Formula One is getting better and better and better.
You've just seen the man most likely to take pole getting into the car. Mika Häkkinen, 8 times in 10 races he started from pole position this year. Only 2 other people have started from pole position. Heinz Harald Frentzen, Rubens Barrichello in France was in pole position. Michael Schumacher in Canada. So there's only been 3 pole holders this year. Ricardo Zonta then completes his lap this morning, 1 minute 20.15. He's 4/10 off what he went this morning. James Allen has some news about tyres.
Yeah, it could play a bit of a factor here. We've had a bit of a boring season for us tyre spotters down here in the pit lane. Most of the time they've been running the same compound of tyre that Bridgestone have brought along. But here they brought the same softer tyre that they used in Monaco. And a few of the teams have decided to go for it. In some cases, it's just to try and get a bit of a performance advantage, make themselves look a bit cleverer in qualifying than they really are. Sauber and certainly the 2 Benettons have gone that route. But interestingly, so have the 2 Jordans. Now, you need a very good balance on your car not to wear these tyres out in a race. So there is a gamble aspect. But I do know that Jordan believed that Frentzen, with a good balance on the car, could do a 1:18.5 today. And that may, Martin, be enough to put him on the front 2 rows of the grid. Interesting strategic possibilities tomorrow to get a good podium finish.
Yes, James, you could well be right. And this place is a bit like Monte Carlo. Grid position and getting into that first corner can dictate your race. I've had races here where I'm stuck behind cars for the whole 77 laps. There's very few overtaking opportunities. Offline is extremely dirty, so they almost treat this as a street race with regard to grid position.
Incidentally, talking about Damon Hill, as James just was, a quite incredible record here in Hungary, because he's won the race twice. He's finished 3rd, 2nd 3 times. He was 4th last year for Jordan. There's John Lacey hopping into the car. That's very good news. Obviously his leg is badly bruised, but it's not stopping the brave Swiss from getting in the Sauber and having a go. And Damon Hill has never started the Hungarian Grand Prix lower than 4th position. This morning, 7th fastest, and he was 1.14 seconds off the pace. That's Nigel Stepney on the right, the man that you saw accepting the Constructors' Championship trophy in Germany on the podium. And he's there with Eddie Irvine, as usual. Eddie looking utterly calm, relaxed, laid back. And is the news that he's going to Jaguar next year definite? Well, the news is definite, but whether it's accurate, we still don't know.
It's not done yet. I think there's a certain amount of confusion going on. Will Eddie Irvine become the world champion in a Ferrari? Would they want to let him go? Mr. Agnelli, the boss of Fiat, and therefore Ferrari is here. He's saying in the press, I like Irvine, I want him to stay. I think there could very much be two factions at Ferrari these days, the pro-Irvine and the anti-Irvine, but Eddie's certainly making lots of noises in the Italian press again about how much better Ferrari is without Michael Schumacher. That could be a very conscious thing of him, hoping Michael's not going to come back before the end of the year. But I don't think I'd want to alienate Michael too much at this stage in case he does return to the cockpit. So lots of politics going on. Eddie's pretty streetwise, and I'm sure some of the comments and feelings he's sending out are very much what he wants to be saying. But pushing Diniz back into the pits. He's on provisional pole at the moment on a 1:21.2, but of course that's miles away from the ultimate pole.
Incidentally, a word from Agnelli in Ferrari and Fiat is a bit like a word from Ecclestone in Formula One. It rules. You're watching Mika Salo. You're going to watch a break now, but we'll be back soon. Go, and it's still Pedro Diniz fastest in the Sauber by 0.2 of a second from Ricardo Zonta, and perhaps significantly no one has yet gone faster than they went this morning when it was a lot cooler, and that's what you would expect. Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari.
There was a rip-off on Irvine's visor, and they've yet to take the protective covering off of it. He'll realise when he puts the visor down, he won't be able to see. It looks all frosty, but this is the arrows, and now we're on to the Sauber on the track. That's a Lacey joining the circuit, the first time he's turned the wheel since whacking the barrier this morning. Back with Takagi coming through the last corner, playing with the throttle, riding the curve, and the start-finish line is just shortly out of that corner, and a 22.1 for Takagi. And, well, pole's going to be something around 4 seconds faster than that, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, here's the gallant Jean Alesi rolling out in his first lap in the Sauber since his whack this morning. He's coming up to turn 5, the highest point on the circuit, third gear, about 85 miles an hour when you're on a quick lap. Then you turn into the chicane, the right-left at turns 5, 6 and 7. It's about 60 miles an hour on the apex there. very narrow, as you saw with Martin earlier on in the programme. Down to the left-hander at turn 8, then roll right. There's a series of sweeping curves here. You'd start from turn 7 at about 60 miles an hour, and then you're up to 120, back to 80, up to 140 again, up to 155 miles an hour for turn 11, which Jean Alesi is approaching now. Underneath the banner, drops downhill at about 150 miles an hour to that turn 12, and here he is completing the lap. Now this is his out lap. It'll be the first of 3 laps, and this should be the quick one. Over the line, building up to 180 miles an hour.
Yes, this car will only have enough fuel on board to do that out lap, one flying lap if that's what he's choosing to do, and an in lap, and then just a few fumes, I would think, after that to make sure he gets back to the pits. They measure the fuel exactly using weight, and you need to keep the cars. They're just showing a slow motion replay there of Alesi pulling the one of the rip-offs off his visor. Obviously, he doesn't like the look of that. But they only put enough fuel in these literally to get them just back to the pits for the absolute minimum weight.
The most experienced man in Formula One now. 161 Grand Prix behind him, and you now see why these men are supermen, not just for their ability to control racing cars at mind-numbing speeds as far as the layman is concerned, but their ability to crash as Alesi did, shrug it off, get back in the car and go for it, and go quicker. 7/10 of a second faster than his teammate Pedro Diniz at the present moment, who is quickest over a full lap. And unless Alesi has messed up the 3rd sector of this 3-sector lap, he's going to go to provisional pole position. His fastest time this morning was 1 minute 20.3, so he's a 1/10 of a second faster than that, a second faster than Pedro Diniz, provisional pole position. But we've still got to have Eddie Irvine out, we've still got to have Damon Hill, Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard, Mika Salo, Ralf Schumacher, who has gone extremely well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan, who's lying 3rd in the World Championship this year, and Johnny Herbert, who was 4th fastest this morning, faster than Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, that's professional stuff there from Alesi. What's happened since he last sat in a racing car, as we've said, is in the wall. They had to lift him out, helicopter to hospital, as you know, back again. 2-hour time gap, jumps in the car and immediately goes a 1/10 of a second faster than his best time so far this weekend.
Yeah,
that's very professional, total commitment, and gives you an idea of how quickly these guys can switch it on when they have to.
You've done it. I mean, what goes through your mind?
Not a lot. You just get in and drive it. It's like riding a bicycle or swimming. If you can do it, you don't forget how to do it. It doesn't suddenly disappear in a couple of hours just with a bit of a sore leg and a helicopter trip. And what would put me off would be the smell. I hate the smell of hospital, so I'd be wanting to get back to the racetrack.
Damon Hill now. I remind you, Damon Hill is yet to start the Hungarian Grand Prix lower than 4th position. If Damon's going to go well anywhere in the rest of this season, it's here, because he must be on a psychological high with those 2 wins and those 3 second places, not to mention the 4th last year behind him. And the car is good. Look closely at the Jordan, incidentally, and you'll see that on the engine cover at the top, they've replaced that mid-wing that they were using a season or so ago, because downforce is so important here at the Hungaroring, where you want plenty of downforce and mechanical grip, that they've decided to put on that extra wing, and they obviously think it's worth it because they've got the alternative engine covers here. And Damon is already 0.8 of a second faster than Alesi, fastest in sector 1, fastest in sector 2. It's all happening here because there goes Mika Salo.
Yes, Hill into the last corner. Remember, he's on those softer tyres if James is right, so this is the kind of pace we would be expecting, and we know that car is good. Damon is very good around here, 19.3. I think he'll actually be slightly disappointed with that. It's number 1 at the moment, but I think he'll be mildly disappointed with that lap time.
Well, 19.3, that's 2/100ths of a second faster than he went this morning in, I suspect, slower conditions. But this is what matters. Look at David Coulthard, because he was second quickest this morning, nearly 7/10 of a second slower than his teammate Mika Häkkinen, and there is Häkkinen.
Yeah, so Coulthard a little bit untidy through turn 6 and 7. The chicane went in a little bit too deep, lost the back, got on the throttle early, but meanwhile still on track, still the fastest sections we've seen. Oh, and again running too wide. So, and that's why he's down. Coulthard having a very, very scrappy lap.
Lots of people have gone off there. You put your rear wheel, or even first put your front wheel on that area of track, and you could go off onto the grass. When you go on the grass, there's less friction, and you're away and into the wall if you're not very careful indeed. But is Coulthard going to go up into that provisional pole position? Yes, he is. 1/10 of a second faster than Damonhill. So, 18 minutes in, Häkkinen is coming out. Coulthard is quickest, Hill is second, and Lacey is third.
Yeah, still a scruffy lap from Coulthard, though. He can go a lot faster than that as the Ferrari of Salo goes over the line, and that's the end of his outlap. So Salo now into the qualifying lap proper. You always think you're going to run out of road on the exit of 1 there, and braking downhill into 2, you have to always brake 2 or 3 meters earlier than you really want to, otherwise you skitter past, and they keep cutting away for some reason to cars coming out of the pits. But Salo back on track with him into turn 4. He's lost half a second to Coulthard, and that's a lot in a 24-second section.
The best he can hope for is 4th at the moment. Jacques Villeneuve is 4th at the moment, and for the first time since the day before yesterday, Mika Salo is on new tyres. You can see the gleaming Bridgestones there on the Ferrari, so he should go considerably quicker than he went this morning, and this morning is 1 minute 20.14. Now, he's going to do well to be in the top 6, faster than Lacey. Rubens Barrichello is out on the track in the Stewart, very quick indeed, 5th fastest this morning. Those times are going to start tumbling, and is Mika Salo going to contribute to it?
Barrichello goes second. Salo hasn't had a great lap, I don't think. He's not really hooked this car up around here yet, but Salo going 9th. So it was a couple of times I saw him on that lap when you were talking, Murray, but he was just on the wrong part of the racetrack. Salo really hasn't found the groove, the sweet spot around here. But Barrichello second. There's Häkkinen going slowly, but I would expect he's just trying to make some space. It's easier to do here because you can go slowly towards that last corner. And corner exit speed out of turn 14 here is not critical. In fact, you're better to go a little slower through it and get a good slingshot into the pit straight. You're only in top gear for just over 3 seconds here. That's why you get all the downforce on you can. Top speed matters nothing. I once lost 6th gear here halfway through. I lost top gear completely in the Benetton and finished 5th. It doesn't really matter, the top speed. It's all about this string of corners and getting them all hooked up together and keeping on the power.
Now, right now, 3 men are on a quick lap. Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari, Frenson in the Jordan, Mika Häkkinen that you're looking at, fastest in Sector 1, Mika Häkkinen. He's heading for a provisional pole position in the McLaren, and it would be his 9th of the year if he did it. The McLaren looking as steady as a rock.
Just as you said that, he was out of control. he really did not get in there. The track's given away a little bit of grip. You can see it. Even Häkkinen was struggling. We saw Coulthard running off the road. This should be something like a 1:18.5 because we saw Coulthard having all sorts of problems and did a 19.1. So Häkkinen still somehow keeping it all together. Hasn't been quite as wild as David Coulthard. Looks like he's going in the pit lane, jinks out. The reason they do that is it's slightly smoother tarmac in the entry lane, entry to the pit lane. Coming over the line, lots of commitment out of the last corner. Häkkinen with a low 18. That's a great end of the lap.
Wow, 1 second faster than Coulthard. Now, what's Eddie Irvine going to do? Here he is coming towards us. He's out very early in his sessions. Second fastest, but 7/10 of a second slower than Mika Häkkinen. So at the present moment, with 22 minutes out of 60 gone, it is a McLaren in pole position, a Ferrari second, a McLaren. Coulthard is third, a Stewart. Barrichello is 4th, Damonhill's Jordan is 5th, and his teammate Heinz-Harald Frenson is 6th. The 2 Benettons, Wurz and Fisichella, are 7th and 8th, ahead of Jacques Villeneuve and Olivier Panis in the Prost. Villeneuve, of course, in the BAR. car in which he has yet to finish a race this year, but Robert Singe, who is the team manager, was telling me just before I came up to the commentary box that they're pretty optimistic for tomorrow. They haven't had any reliability problems from either Zonta or Villeneuve here in Hungary this year. So we're now 23 minutes into the session, and you're watching Mika Häkkinen having done his 3 laps. He's still got three lap sessions left. And here is Eddie Irvine. Now, he will be coming in as well. Meantime, Johnny Herbert is out. He's done a 25.3 in the first sector, compared with Mika Häkkinen 25 and Eddie Irvine 25.1. But Häkkinen's just done a 24.7. He is awesome as usual. Mika Häkkinen, like the late, great Ayrton Senna, always seems to be able to pull something out of the bag when it's needed.
Yes, but he's had just solid speed anyway, hasn't he, Murray? I mean, I'd be staggered if anybody takes that pole position away from Häkkinen. I think Häkkinen can go faster. I think there's a 17 in there. We saw him having a few moments on that lap. Last year's pole, can I see from your notes here, Murray, was a 1:16.9. So we're still quite a bit slower than last year, and I think this the extra groove in the front tyre, but I think more so the harder rubber that they're using this year is quite clearly slowing the cars down.
Mika Häkkinen was 1.3 seconds off his own last year's pole position time when he was fastest this morning. What's the news, Louise Goodman?
News on John O'Leary, just an update. Not a bad lap from him at all, that first one out since that big accident this morning. A bit of stern stuff, these Formula 1 drivers. In fact, I don't think that ankle's causing him any problems at all. He doesn't even have it strapped up, so it seems like the accident looked a bit more dramatic than it actually was. He didn't report any problems with his ankle when he came in. All he was complaining about was the brakes on the car, so it seems to be business as usual for Jean.
Well, thanks. We're watching him, as you say that, Louise, and he's gone faster in the first 2 sectors than he has been before, so you're obviously right. It hasn't slowed him up at all. He's 1 second off the pace. If he can keep this up, he could be in the top 6. He'll certainly be in the top 10. And we'll know the answer very shortly. Here he is out of the last corner, turn 14. There are the painted lines of the start and finish grid. And John O'Leary moves up to 10th position, 1.7 seconds slower than Mika Häkkinen, with 35 minutes to go.
Yes, when that adrenaline is flowing through your veins, you really don't think too much about painful knees and ankles. It's amazing. You sit inside the car and all of those things just ebb and flow away from you. Your mind focuses, you're peeping out of this little porthole in your crash helmet, and all of a sudden all of those problems just go away.
Well, it's not inconceivable that Mika Häkkinen, that you've just seen being pushed into the garage, is going to spend the majority of the rest of the qualifying hour sitting there, because with nearly 0.8 of a second between him and Eddie Irvine, who's second fastest, he's in a commanding position as we go for a break. almost halfway through the 60-minute qualifying session for tomorrow's Hungarian Grand Prix. 31.5 minutes to go as Olivier Panis in the Prost completes the lap, and the Frenchman is in 11th position. It's still Mika Häkkinen sitting in the garage, and I'm not surprised. He's nearly 0.8 of a second faster than Eddie Irvine, who is second. David Coulthard is still third, ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Damon Hill is fifth, 1 place lower than his previous lowest start position for Hungary. And David Coulthard in the McLaren exits the garage into the pit lane and onto the track. And as you can see, the steward there of Rubens Barrichello is just half a second off the pace. He might move up, but Damon Hill just goes up to third position. Third position, 1/10 of a second slower than Eddie Irvine. So Damon has very much got the message, and Rubens Barrichello is fourth, 2/10 of a second slower than Damon Hill. Good news for Jordan fans, great news for Damon Hill fans. Third at the present moment, but there's still half the session to go as you watch Mika Salo in the Ferrari trying to improve on 15th.
Yes, well, this is his outlap, as you can see. Look at the dust on the racetrack. Fortunately, although it's in a traction area, they've got a good bit of speed on there for a reasonable amount of downforce, and they can get through it without too much difficulty. But that sand gradually makes its way around the circuit. If somebody goes off, they jump on the brakes. You intentionally do that. You go through the gravel trap. At the next opportunity, you jump on the brake pedal to clear all of the side pods out, and that leaves gravel everywhere too. But Salo on track, down into the first corner. You can see Zanardi's not in the race yet. He aborted his one and only fast lap so far. That was already 2.5 seconds off the pace. So Zanardi in trouble, but time to play with. Salo coming through turn 3 will get his first section time just as he goes over the crest into 4, and he's 7/10 of a second down. Salo can't get this Ferrari hooked up, Murray.
No, he can't. You said Zanardi's still not in the race. That, I remind everybody, is because in order to take part in the...
And Salo straight on. He lost where you're braking hard into turn 6, the chicane. You're downshifting, got 3 or 4 shifts to get out of the way. Salo locks up the rear. There you see him trying to get the gravel out of the side pods, hit the brake and move it around. Now watch, just watch his right rear and you'll see, in fact, it didn't show up so clearly there, but just locked his rear wheels, had to steer away from the corner, runs out of road and across the gravel trap.
Meantime, David Coulthard, who's down to 5th position, is on a good lap, which could put him back into 3rd place. He's just done the first sector as Mika Salo comes through. Now, he may well come into the pit lane just for a check over the car, have a look at the radiator inlets and make sure that there's nothing in there that's going to foul things and cause the engine to overheat, and that is exactly what he's doing. He's only 15th at the present moment. He's now done 6 of his 12 laps.
I think this is going to put Coulthard back on the front row, providing he doesn't run wide through the last corner. In fact, he seems to have a very nice line. Got on the power quite strongly, not absolutely able to put it flat out. Yes, he does. 1:18.5. Coulthard up to join his teammate on the front row.
Now, this morning, only 2 drivers broke the 1:19 time, Häkkinen and Coulthard. This afternoon, it's 3 so far. Häkkinen and Coulthard, who, as Martin rightly points out, are now together on the front row of the grid, and Eddie Irvine, as we have news from James Allen.
Yeah, just took a wander down to Williams to see what's going on in episode 7 of the Alessandro Zanardi soap opera in Formula 1. A few changes to the front of the car, but nothing dramatic. But one thing I can tell you that is very interesting is this is the first race weekend of the year in which he's left foot braked. Up until now, he's always been using his right foot to brake. And as you know, he's been using steel discs at times as well. So he's on full carbon discs, left foot braking, doing exactly what Ralf Schumacher's been doing. He's finding it pretty tough, but he's got to do it. As Martin will tell you, most drivers in a team, the left foot braker is always faster than the right foot braker. And as regards Alex's future, I get the feeling just within the Williams camp that they're going to stick with him. They're not in the business of dumping drivers. And for all the rumours that he might be on his way out, I think he'll stay at Williams for a little while.
Well, he's got a solid 3-year contract, so I think it'll have to be him walking away if that's the case. But let me tell you, when you're braking at these kind of speeds in the Formula 1 car, it's a totally instinctive thing. and you can't say, okay, right, I'm going to use my left foot now, and have to start thinking about when you're going to brake. You just can't do it. You brake instinctively. You don't ever think, I'll brake now and I'll brake this much and then I'll let the brake off. You do it automatically. And here's Irvine, and he's on a stormer.
Yeah, he is. This could move him back onto the front row of the grid. Fastest in the second sector, out of the last corner. Very good first sector. Eddie Irvine really going for it in the Ferrari. Over the line, and yes, only 0.2 of a second slower than Mika Häkkinen, and he's back on the front row of the grid. 0.2 of a second faster than David Coulthard. Now, I've said in the past that Eddie Irvine has risen magnificently to the challenge of being the team leader in the absence of Michael Schumacher. Eddie won in Austria, having finished second in Britain, and that was a race he might well have won. He then won in Germany and racked up the points to go ahead of Mika Häkkinen in the World Championship. Eddie Irvine leads the World Championship by 8 points at the present moment, and it's very, very important for his championship chances that he starts on the front row as Mika Häkkinen there in the McLaren, and I expect that to be in second position on the grid.
Yes, but I would expect, you know, I half think that Irvine's going for pole, hoping that if he doesn't, then he's third, because the inside of the track here is really filthy, and it leaves you tucked up on the way into the first corner. I've seen Irvine, I've actually been one of the cars that he's tried to go around the outside of into turn one. You can get a good slingshot down the outside and have a go around, and that's where he'll hoping to be at the first corner of the race. And really, he's either better on pole or in third place to achieve that, in my view.
25 minutes to go. Häkkinen just 0.02 of a second outside at this point his own provisional pole position time.
Yeah, taking no prisoners there either, with those drivers cruising in or out of the pits. A little bit unfair of that BIR driver. I guess it was Zomta, but in fact it was Villeneuve, but Häkkinen, that would have hurt his entry speed into 5. Let's see as we go through this lap whether it's actually spoiled this run, but good clean run there from Häkkinen. He's picked it up. He's a half a hundredth up, so he may just pop into the late 1:17s. I suspect it'll be more like a very, very low 1:18, but Häkkinen looking pretty peerless around this track, even with traffic, Murray.
Yeah, just 1.2 seconds off his own pole position time last year. And yeah, his third sector was a bit slower, so his previous time still stands as the quickest of the afternoon with just under 24 minutes to go. Häkkinen and Irvine share the front row.
Yeah, Villeneuve actually asleep there and having to turn away to prevent the accident, and Häkkinen quite rightly you know, total commitment into the corner. We're on board with Burt's in the Benetton. That's turn 2. Turn 3 now that you can take flat out. You have to be very careful of that curb on the right-hand side. Try to get the car in a straight line, brake over the blind crest. You get a comfort factor from touching that curb. You know you're still in the right place. And through 5, you go in early, stay right initially, and then let the car wander to the outside. Now try and pick a place to brake. And quite nicely over the curves there. Burt's hasn't shone this weekend, nor has the Benetton really in terms of absolute raw speed. He's currently in 9th place, so picked up a little bit in this qualifying session. Quick left now, just down 1 gear, turn in early, there's more grip there, and then ride the curb on the outside. This is a very difficult corner to see, as Burt's, using all the mud and dirt there. He's 6/10 down, a better lap than Burt's has done at any point. Easy to outbrake yourself through there. Use the smoother tarmac of the pit lane. And now I always think it's better to come in early in this last corner, otherwise you feel out at sea, a little bit like Wirtz was, to be honest there. You get out and you can't bring the car back in, but that moves him up to 7th place.
Good lap. Good lap by Alex Wirtz. And Fisichella, his teammate, immediately goes 5th ahead of him. So 22.5 minutes to go here in the top 10. Häkkinen and Irvine on the front row. Coulthard and Frentzen on the second row. Fisichella and Damon Hill on the third row. Barrichello and Wirtz on the 4th row. Jean Alesi and Jacques Villeneuve, a superb 5th row. Jean Alesi after his crash this morning. Jacques Villeneuve after all the unreliability that he's had with the BAR this year. Let's hope it holds together tomorrow, in which case Jacques, who has already won this Grand Prix twice and finished 3rd once in 3 years here, has got good chances for tomorrow.
That's a great camera angle there. let me tell you, that is really pretty much how it looks from a driver's view, looking out of the cockpit. That kind of view, that kind of feeling, a little bit of movement in the front suspension, and then the turning of the wheel. It's bizarre sitting down in amongst your front wheels like that, but what you're seeing there is very, very close to the kind of visibility that a Formula One driver has.
21.5 minutes to go. Now, who's done the laps? Most of them have done about half their laps. A notable exception is Jean Lacey, who's done 9 out of his 12 laps. All the rest have done 5, 6, 7, so there's going to be a lot of action in the remaining 21 minutes or so here on the Hungaroring. That action means traffic, and if you hit the traffic wrong, that's going to mean bad news because it'll slow you up a lot. And the trick is for your race engineers to plot out where the cars are around the track at any given point in time so that they can get you on the track with a clear track in front of you. It's not easy. It's something that McLaren used to do brilliantly well for Ayrton Senna. I've no doubt they're doing it equally well for Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard as we watch Damon Hill now. He's on his quick lap, he's done his out lap. The first sector, 0.3 of a second off the pace in comparison with Mika Häkkinen's fastest time for that sector. Now, if Damon Hill can improve by just 0.2 of a second, he will move ahead of Fisichella. If he can make it 4, he'll be up a row.
Yes, Damon completely messed up turn 6 and 7 there, and I think he's abandoning this lap. When I drove that car recently, I was amazed at how tractable it was, how easy it was to drive, how well the engine management system had been sorted out. And I'm really expecting, Frenton's up in 4th, Hill in 6th. I'd be really not at all surprised if that car worked well around here. Seemed to have good drivability and good low-end sort of power delivery.
In 10 races this year, Damon has only out-qualified Heinz-Harald Frentzen once. Doesn't look at the present moment as though he's going to do it here. Frentzen is 4th fastest on the 2nd row. Damon Hill is 6th fastest on the 3rd row. More news from James Allen.
Well, Murray, I've got a very interesting scene unfolding in front of me here. I'm standing in front of the McLaren garage, in front of Mika Häkkinen's pit, and he has a slight look of concern in his face. I think he does feel Irvine is a little closer for comfort than he would like. But Ron Dennis is a picture of calm, and I just saw him say to Mika, you can do it. They're looking for a high 17, a 17.8 or a 17.9 to put it out of Irvine's reach. They've made no adjustments to this car. You would expect them possibly to add a little bit of downforce, but certainly not in Häkkinen's case. So watch out for him in a second. Meanwhile, David Coulthard has changed the front and rear anti-roll bars. A lot of adjustments on his car. He's really looking for a lot of time.
And here is Rubens Barrichello going for it in the Stewart. It's got the new Series 4 engine, more power at the top. It's very drivable. Barrichello is 7th at the present moment.
Yes, and the feeling amongst the drivers is that that Ford engine is one of the very, very best on the racetrack. I've heard several drivers comment on how good they think that is, and not just the two that are fortunate enough to squeeze the throttle pedal and listen to it and feel it thrusting forwards.
Certainly working well at the moment. 0.2 of a second off in the first sector. Over his full lap, Barrichello was 1 second off the pace before. He's done a 24.9.
Yeah, he's blown it. Same place, turn 6. It's very difficult to read the road there. The little curving is out of sight, and you have to brake desperately late, especially in the race. It's so easy to get it wrong there when you're following another car closely. And Barrichello having exactly the same problem as Hill and just going in too deep into 6. If you brake too early, amazingly, you can lose 2 or 0.3 of a second just by braking too early into that one corner.
Now, I'm intrigued by what's up with Vico Salo, the Ferrari driver. Remember how well he started in Germany behind the pole position holder, but he's now down in 17th position, having done 6 laps. He's out on the track again. He's about to start what he hopes will be a quick lap, but he's 2.2 seconds off the pace, and it certainly needs to be.
Yes, meanwhile in here somewhere, Alex Zanardi is now in the race in 16th place, but Ralf Schumacher, his teammate, is only in 15th place. So the Williams team have not found the right way of setting this car up around here, which is strange because they've had so many successes here at Williams.
Absolutely, yeah. New aerodynamics here. They're looking forward to the BMW engine. The BAR has not been, the Supertech has not been as reliable ideally as they would have hoped this year. Now, how's Salo going? He just nips past the Prost, he won't have lost any time there, but 0.8 of a second off there in the first sector. is certainly not at all good news for him. Meantime, Ricardo Zonta, down in 18th position in the BAR, is on a good lap, trying to close up with his teammate Jack Villeneuve, who is in 10th position. Top 10, 16 minutes to go. Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen, Fisichella, Hill, Barrichello, Wurz, Alesi, Villeneuve.
Yes, I don't know whether Salo actually said this, but he's quoted verbatim as saying, I've got plenty of drives on offer. I want to get them signed up before this weekend in case I mess up in Hungary, which is a particularly silly thing to say. And unfortunately, he looks like he's doing that right now. So Salo down in 18th, and this lap may move him 1 or 2 places, but it's certainly not going to get him anywhere near his teammate up there in 2nd place on the grid.
No, he's not shining here. In fact, he stays in 18th position, and he's only got 4 laps left now, with just under 16 minutes to go. Eddie Irvine sitting impassively in the Ferrari, knowing he's on the front row of the grid, knowing he's 0.2 of a second faster than David Coulthard, 0.2 of a second slower than Mika Hakkinen.
Yes, and Eddie Irvine will be shaking his head also at Salo's non-performance. He needs Salo up the front there, helping him and taking points away from the McLaren team. So Irvine needs Salo to help him, as he did in Hockenheim, of course.
Well, David Coulthard just 9/100ths of a second of Mika Hakkinen's pace in the 2nd sector there. Now, he's got to improve by 0.2 of a second to displace Irvine. He's going to do that, or he was going to do that, at the end of the 2nd sector. Is Coulthard second on the front row of the grid? No, he's not. He's 3/100ths of a second too slow in comparison with Eddie Irvine, who can breathe again, because David Coulthard is now on his 10th lap out of 12. It's looking very iffy indeed about the prospects of 2 McLarens being on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, it's quite a strong performance. It's a very strong performance from Irvine here. At no time did it look like Irvine was fast enough to split these 2 McLarens, although, of course, as we said before, he hadn't really used a new tyre, so Eddie doing a sterling job. Both Irvine and Coulthard a fraction apart, and 1/4 of a second only slower than Mika Hakkinen. That's not much, is it, with 14 corners?
No, exactly. 1.5 seconds faster than he went this morning on those older tyres, Eddie Irvine. So the Ferrari strategy seems to be paying off. They're trying to keep as many sets of tyres as they can for the race tomorrow, because strategy is going to be intriguing tomorrow. Michael Schumacher won with a 3-stop strategy last year, and it is actually the quickest way to do the race if you're starting at the front, towards the front of the grid.
Yes, James was just sent a message of James Allen from the pit lane saying that they've changed everything on that car of Ralf Schumacher's, apparently, which is currently down in 15th place, and he's going to have another run, but seems like a bit of a desperate day down there. I've heard people say in the past the easiest and cheapest thing to change on a racing car is the driver. I don't think that would work out with Ralf Schumacher's been driving exceptionally well, but both Williams struggling badly around this circuit.
I doubt that it's down to Ralf Schumacher. Frank Williams was really fulsome in his praise.
I don't know what Benetton are doing, but they've just gone on the same lap, 4th and 6th. So Fisichella 4th and the Wurz up to 6th. That's a pretty sterling performance coming out of nowhere.
Yes, interestingly, the Benetton team went to the Danielson circuit in France to concentrate on the sort of going that they were going to have here in Hungary, and it certainly looks as though it's paying off. Now, this is Eddie Irvine. He's got 5 laps still to do. Going for the pole position, he's got plenty of time to do it. 12.5 minutes.
Yeah, something you said there always makes me smile. They said go to the Danielson circuit, all the safety in Formula One, and then teams go off and test a little goat tracks where I've been to Danielson, and you go off the road there. There's a great big mud bank that is the only thing between you and some farmer's shed, so it's pretty silly testing cars at places like that when so much emphasis is put on safety at the Grand Prix circuits. But Irvine on track, and he's slightly faster than his best first section, albeit a 10th down on Hakkinen. But where Irvine was quick on the last lap to put him on the provisional front row is now through these series of corners, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, the middle part of the racetrack, and Irvine does seem to have found the groove nicely through there. You can tell how the car's working, how much hand movement is there on the steering wheel, how much correction is he making, and Eddie's car does seem to be well glued down to the racer. He turns in much earlier there than a lot of drivers, does Irvine, and he's not quite as quick as he was last time through, I should say. So it's going to be touch and go, but I don't think this is going to take away the pole position, Murray.
Häkkinen's just done a good lap, but not quite good enough to go quicker than he'd gone before. 1:18.156 is Eddie Irvine's target, 1/10 of a second off, so he's halved the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen from 0.2 of a second to 1/10 of a second. But when you think, Martin, that until very recently, Eddie Irvine's target was to be within half a second of Michael Schumacher, who's been consistently beaten for grid pole position by Mika Häkkinen this year. For him to be only 1/10 of a second off Häkkinen is a terrific achievement.
Yeah, it is. That's a great run from Irvine. That's a world-class drive, no doubt about it. To push Häkkinen for pole here is, well, I don't think anybody in the pit lane expected that. So Irvine doing a brilliant job.
And as Eddie and Michael Schumacher always point out, Ferrari go better in race trim on race day than they do in qualifying trim.
I think Schumacher and Irvine have been together in the Ferrari team for 56 races. I think off the top of my head, Michael's out-qualified Irvine 53 times in those 56 races. So, you know, it shows you the speed Michael's had, and that's not a contractual thing. It's Michael is very, very quick in qualifying, but Eddie's picked the baton up and is running with it nicely.
Yeah, Johnny Herbert going well. His teammate Rubens Barrichello in 9th position. If you're wondering how Michael Schumacher is, incidentally, he's had 2 screws taken out of the pin in his leg, and he is doing light physio and a bit of gentle work in the gym. But if he won't be back before Monza, I wouldn't expect. And Monza is on September the 12th. 3 races from now, including tomorrow's Hungarian Grand Prix. So Eddie Irvine there is going to be carrying the baton, and Mika Salo has got the chance to improve, but he hasn't got very much chance to improve here. He's got 9.5 minutes left. He's still down in 18th position. He's got 4 laps left, so as Eddie is contentedly wheeled into the Ferrari garage, Mika Salo must be coming out soon to make a very major effort to improve on what he's done so far. This is Marc Genet in the Minardi, which is a very much improved motor car, incidentally. It's still at the back of the grid, but as Minardi improved, so of course does everybody else, and the differential remains much the same.
Yes, you're right in saying that, Murray, you know, because, I mean, there they are, they're 3.7 seconds off pole, which is an eternity, as we know. But I remember back in the turbo days where there was a 10-second spread from pole to the last man on the grid. So all of the teams have upped their level, although the pecking orders remained pretty similar.
Yes, you have to spend a gigantic amount of money with a lot of people in Formula One. 258 people at VAR, for instance, and they have not yet achieved very much with it this year, despite valiant efforts. Jacques Villeneuve, their lead driver, is 8th on the grid, and Ricardo Zonta, his teammate, is down at 17th. So looking, as you watch Marc Genet, at how the teams have been doing, Häkkinen faster than Coulthard, Irvine obviously faster than Salo, Fisichella faster than Wurz, they are respectively in 4th and 6th position. Frentzen faster than Hill, 5th and 7th. Villeneuve faster than Zonta. Barrichello only a couple of tenths of a second faster than Johnny Herbert. They are 9th and 10th. And Jean Alesi there faster than his teammate Pedro Diniz.
Sylvester Stallone, they were just telling me before the session that he's still very much hoping his Formula One film is going ahead and is expecting it to go ahead. There was some stories that the movie had been canned, but he says it's still very much game on, so we look forward to seeing that as and when it happens.
Well, Damon Hill, now this is his out lap, and he's trying to improve on 7th and get closer to the lowest place he's ever started in Hungary. 4th position on the grid, 2nd row.
And this is the most nervous point of the weekend for a driver. You know you've got to have total commitment to this lap. It's such a slippery racetrack. One tiny mistake and you're offline. Yet you know you've got to attack and get every ounce you can out of it. You can't hold back. You've got to improve your lap time, but you mustn't make a mistake. And it's so difficult to hit that fine point of over-commitment and over-driving and getting the best out of the car. Damon looking neat and tidy. Let's see how it pays off as he goes through the sector time now.
Oh, he's on it.
It's good.
He's on it. 1/10 of a second off in the first sector. 2 to go. Now, Hill has got to improve by 3/10 of a second to move up 1 place. But if he can improve by half a second, he will be on the second row of the grid, and that does not look impossible at the present moment. We'll know as he reaches the end. Just lost a fraction there.
Yeah, he didn't go over the curve into 8. He lost time through 8 compared to the front runners, but it's still a nice lap from Damon. Total commitment, and again, a lot of dust, but I don't think it was any problem for him as long as he doesn't lock a wheel into this turn 13, which he hasn't done.
This could put him on the front row of the grid. It's very unlikely, but he just could do it. It certainly could put him on the second row of the grid if the third sector was a good one. His tail wags a bit as he exits the last turn, and no, 6th position. So he has improved. He's now on the same row of the grid as his teammate and chief rival, therefore, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and they are separated by 3 1/1000ths of a second. 2 different drivers, 2 different cars, 2 different engines, different sets of tyres, and they are separated over a distance of 2.46 miles by 3 1/1000ths of a second.
Well, that's Damon's lapped up. He's no more opportunity has Damon. So the runners with another set of tyres and enough laps to use them. The key runners, that is, Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Fisichella and Frentzen. The top 5 all have another run. Hill's finished in 6th. Wirtz, Villeneuve and Barrichello and Herbert finishing the top 10. They've all got another opportunity. James has got some news for us about Salo.
Yeah, Martin, I'm in the Ferrari pit, and Mika Salo, well, he's made a few minor changes to this car. I spoke to him just before qualifying. I said, how are you fixed? He said, this Ferrari is going to be right on the pace of the McLaren in qualifying. And, you know, he was dead right, but unfortunately, it's Irvine who's on the pace and not Salo. This is one of those tracks where you really have to get everything together. All the corners have to be perfect to get the perfect qualifying lap. I think he's a little bit rusty at this. Hockenheim, a very different matter to go quickly on those long straights, and he's just not getting the best out of the car. It's more him than the car today, for sure.
Did he say which year McLaren he was going to match the pace of? That's the thing.
The 1994 McLaren, I think.
Well, Rubens Barrichello is the man that you are watching at the moment. 4/10 of a second off the pace in the first sector. He is down in 9th place at the present moment. We've got just over 4 minutes to go of this session. Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard and Fisichella, who's now 4th on the grid, ahead of Frentzen and Hill, have all got 3 laps left. So Giancarlo Fisichella has put in a stonking lap in the Benetton. He is 4th. His teammate Wirtz is in 7th position. This is a great comeback for the Benetton team as Rubens Barrichello approaches the last series of corners on the lap. Now, the gap between himself and Hakkinen was just over 1 second. It's mighty, mighty close at the top. Barrichello just faster than Herbert, and he stays where he is, in spite of having gone faster through the 3rd sector than he had been before. He did not improve by enough. His lap was marginally faster than he had been before. He's now just under a second slower than Hakkinen, who's in pole position.
Yeah, Salo going onto the track. He's now got 1 flying lap left, as James said. He's back in 18th position, and he's got to hope and pray that he doesn't come across traffic or somebody recovering from a spin or going through the gravel trap, as he did earlier on, and emptying the gravel out on the racetrack. And this is a Stewart looking extremely sideways.
Rubens Barrichello, then?
I think that was at the end of his fast lap, though, so I don't think it was a major problem because Barrichello's lap is over.
Yeah, Mika's leaving it right until the last moment, letting the Prost get past him so that he's got a clear track. He's got plenty of time, actually, although there's just 2.5 minutes to go. He's only got 1 lap left. So he wants to make quite sure he's got a clear track in front of him.
Yes, and you have to be very careful not to mess other people's laps up, you know, because they're on their flying lap, and hey presto, you're on your flying lap the next time round, and they're on their slowing down lap. And maybe Grand Prix drivers are not the most intelligent people in the world, but they can certainly remember as far back as 1 lap ago when you spoiled their best time.
Anybody that can make the money they make can't be too stupid. So Oh, here is Salo starting his quick lap, and I'll tell you this, that David Coulthard is out of the pit lane onto the track. He's going for that second position on the grid by trying to beat Eddie Irvine. He's got the laps and he's just about got the time to do it. Here's Salo.
Yeah, he's got 2 cars ahead of him. Salo with 2 cars. So what he's got to do at this point is not go, oh no, the last thing I need. He's got to look at turn 2 and turn 3 and get it absolutely right and hope they see him coming. Oh dear, oh dear. Mika's going to meet them somewhere in 5. He's going to have to get out of it. He's going to end up starting back in 18th or 19th place. Unless both these Prosts will very kindly get out of his way into 6. One of them does, the other doesn't. He's going to have to follow him through. Runs wide. Oh, no.
And he was already 7/10 of a second off the pace, 8/10 of a second off the pace. He's probably going to be, I would reckon, about 11th or 12th on the grid, which will be an improvement of 6 places, but not enough.
No, he's not. He's not. He's going to stay where he is, Murray. I don't see how he's going to go faster than his best lap. He had a terrible run through there. He's 18th
right
on the grid.
Yeah, 2.8 seconds. He might just as well tour in now. Join the 2 Prosts. What about David Coulthard?
Coulthard is out on track. Now, has Salo got 1 more lap left? Remember, he had to abandon one because he went through the gravel. Maybe, although the tyres are not as fresh, maybe he's got 1 more chance, 1 more flying lap, and that McLaren that's ahead of him shouldn't be giving him too much trouble. So he lives for another day.
Damon Hill is still in 6th position.
Yellow flags waving for some reason in the last corner, although I couldn't really see why, but that'll spoil a few people's
this
laps.
is David Coulthard on his last effort to improve, get back on the front row of the grid.
Well, I would be impressed now if Coulthard either puts it on pole or sticks it in the wall. It's got to be one of those laps, I think. Just give it everything.
3/100ths of a second off. I remind you that Eddie Irvine was 1/10 of a second slower than Mika Häkkinen. There's the checkered flag. Of course, David Coulthard, having started the lap, can complete it, and his time will count. So he was very, very close to Häkkinen, marginally faster than Eddie Irvine in the first sector. And Mika Häkkinen, meantime, is out on the track, and not only out on the track, but going faster than he's been before. Now, Martin, if David Coulthard can keep this up, he might just get on the front row of the grid. But Mika Häkkinen is going to make the pole position time even shorter than it was before. Now, keep your fingers crossed, McLaren fans.
I don't think it was tidy enough lap. It was committed, but I don't think it was quite tidy enough.
And the news is bad. He stays where he is in 3rd position. So the checkered flag is out. No one who is out on the track is going to beat the 2 fastest. And we certainly have Mika Häkkinen starting in pole position for the 9th time this year, the 19th time in his career for tomorrow's Hungarian Grand Prix, with Eddie Irvine just 1/10 of a second slower than him on the front row of the grid, ahead of David Coulthard. In 3rd place, Giancarlo Fisichella, a quite magnificent 4th place ahead of that man, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is on the 3rd row of the grid in 5th place with his teammate Damon Hill. Alex Wurz in the 2nd Benetton is 7th with Rubens Barrichello. Jacques Villeneuve will not be too unhappy with 9th position in the BAR, 5th row of the grid. He's sharing that with Johnny Herbert, who is 10th. Jorna Lacey and Denise, the Sauber teammates, are 11th and 12th, ahead of the Prost teammates, Jarno Trulli and Olivier Panis. Then the 2 Williams with Zanardi, this time faster than Ralf Schumacher, as Mika Häkkinen and Eddie Irvine congratulate each other.
Thanks, Murray. Thank you, Martin. Well, when you rejoin us, the views of Tony Jardine and the decisive moments of that session that puts world champion Häkkinen on pole for the 9th time in 11 races.
Thanks, Eddie. Just straight up.
Welcome to the top 3 drivers at the Hungarian Grand Prix for the qualifying session. That's Mika Häkkinen, Eddie Irvine and David Coulthard. Mika, your 9th pole of the season, and you set your time right at the beginning, but was that the maximum?
No, it was not. I think we did the right timing to go out early and to set the time like that. That was a good, right decision. Looking at my last run, I was very confident with the car, and we made some really good changes to the car, and I was able to push. And actual fact, my first sector was starting looking pretty good that time. But then was the Herbert in Stewart was front of me, and I think his deflectors and front wing broke same time when he was front of me, so I have to obviously slow down. So that was the last run. If I come to other runs, every time I had a traffic, and it's very unfortunate, and that is the characteristic of this circuit. And sometimes it's, you know, we tend to blame the other drivers, you know, why they do that, why they come front of us at that time. But you know, it's difficult here. And it happens, but I'm happy to be first.
Now, it's obvious that tyre wear is going to be a key factor for the race tomorrow, and we've got some unlikely drivers quite far up the qualifying. What can we read into that? Are they on softs and you're on the harder tyre?
Let's say experience for yesterday and this morning, we're looking pretty comfortable at the moment and confident with our tyres. Obviously, Bridgestone provide us the best tyres available in our team, so we are very confident. Sorry, Eddie. You don't know that, obviously. Now you know. Yeah, we are very confident with the tyres and experience with the last Grand Prix. Obviously, there was some negative memories from that race, but obviously this circuit is not the place where you are loading the tyres as heavily and don't give me as hard time here than in Hockenheim.
Thank you, Mika. Eddie, are you surprised to be sitting there in second place in qualifying?
Here I thought, you know, if we can qualify on pole anywhere, it should be here. No straights really, but even, you know, our T1 time is where we lost out, which is the 2 straights. It's good to be on the front row, although sometimes third better than second here.
Do you feel like starting on the dirty side of the track tomorrow is going to be a big disadvantage?
Yeah, well, it sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. You know, I've made great starts from both sides of the grid. We see tomorrow, you know. The side helps you maybe 20%. The technique is 80%, so we'll see.
Now, one of the most striking things about qualifying is how poorly, relatively, Mika Salo has done to you. Do you know what problems he had?
I don't know what Mika's problem has been. You know, he's been struggling sort of all weekend. I think this circuit, you really need to believe in the car. You really need to be very familiar with it and, you know, really go into the corners too fast and catch it in the middle of the corners. And he hasn't done very much running at, at proper circuits. You know, if you look at Hockenheim and you look at Fiorano, they're not really circuits where you learn the car. So it's a bit disappointing for him. But I think tomorrow in the race, he'll get in the groove and we'll see a good drive.
Thanks, Eddie. David, you seem to suffer more with traffic and debris than most. I mean, are you disappointed or just pleased to have made the third place?
I don't know, you can always be a little bit disappointed if you're not the quickest, because obviously that's a place where you can control the field if you manage to make a good start. But nonetheless, it's incredibly close. You know, as I think everyone could tell the story about going a little bit quicker if you had some clear track. I actually ended up holding someone up by mistake as well, so it kind of works both ways.
Thanks, David. Mika, you obviously need the win for the championship position, but also this is the closest you have to a home Grand Prix. Why are there so many Finns come to watch you in Hungary?
I think they were roughly probably about 23 extra flights coming from Finland to Hungary for this weekend. Yes, it's great, you know, it's... Sorry?
That's the whole population.
Talking about the island, eh? Anyway, it's great. It's really good fun to see so many Finns, and previous years there has been Finns and more coming now, obviously because of McLaren and my and David's performance, and obviously now the Mika is in driving Ferrari, so the whole Finland is is basically watching and wanted to come to see here in Hungary, and obviously all the sorry, it's for you. Thanks. Hello. So yes, it's really good. There's so many Finns, and they like to come to Hungary because it's very similar mentality and similarities than Finland is to Hungary.
And now perhaps a word for your Finnish fans in your own language.
Ei muuta kuin lippu korkealla ja jäitä hattuun ja hyvät ilmat tuli tämmöiset, pitäkää nyt hauskaa taas. Mä oon aina sanonut tämän aikaisemminkin, mutta mä oon tyytyväinen tähän tämän päivän tulokseen siinä mielessä, että mä olin ensimmäinen. Pettynyt siinä mielessä, koska mä olisin toivonut, että aikaero olisi ollut suurempi, mutta me oltaisiin ehkä saatu auto nopeammaksi siinä toisessa ja kolmannessa ajossa, ellei olisi ollut niin paljon trafiikkia radalla.
Fisichella ha fatto un tempo eccezionale, probabilmente il piccolo coso che gli è andato nell'occhio l'ha aiutato a essere più arrabbiato, è andato molto meglio, ha fatto un tempo stupendo oserei dire, e anche Wurz ha sottolineato la prestazione della macchina perché anche lui ha fatto un ottimo tempo. Direi che un po' in ombra sono rimasti Frentzen, il quale nell'ultimo giro ha avuto quel contatto, vediamo qui Häkkinen quando fa il suo miglior tempo, che non è più riuscito a migliorare. Però una cosa strana dobbiamo dire, stava migliorando il suo tempo con un treno di gomme usate, quando l'incidente di Frentzen con Herbert gli ha impedito di poter finire, ecco questo è Salo.
Mica Salo.
Errori ne ha fatti tanti e bisogna dire che non è mai riuscito a scendere sotto il suo tempo, ha fatto un tempo di 20 e qualcosa, poi lì è rimasto sbagliando sistematicamente, soprattutto nell'ultima parte del circuito, non è mai riuscito a fare un tempo discreto.
David Coulthard.
Coulthard ha fatto un tempo eccezionale se consideriamo che l'ha fatto quando c'era traffico, però nei 3 precedenti run non ha combinato niente, quindi direi che anche oggi non è stato all'altezza di quello che ci si dovrebbe aspettare da uno come lui, che l'anno scorso era riuscito a stare davanti a Schumacher. Però voglio dire che molti dei miglioramenti di Irvine debbono essere ascritti alla macchina, perché indubbiamente la Ferrari si è dimostrata, ecco Fisichella quando fa il suo tempo.
La Ferrari si è dimostrata?
Veramente notevolmente migliorata nelle ultime gare.
Abbiamo sentito poc'anzi Irvine dire in conferenza stampa siamo all'80%.
È perché lui pensa che normalmente, ecco lui quando fa il tempo vicinissimo a quello di Häkkinen, e lui sa che normalmente in gara loro sono migliori di quanto non lo siano durante le qualifiche. Ma io voglio ricordargli che questo è un circuito fortemente atipico. Non metterei tutte le cose così come sono negli altri circuiti, aspetterei a vedere domani. Direi che domani lui deve essere come sempre alla finestra.
Guardiamo un po' avanti a proposito di domani, scelte tattiche in particolar modo, attenzione ai pneumatici, Mauro.
Io direi che di pneumatici non si discute, devono essere quelli duri, non credo. Potrà esserci qualcuno di dietro che è nei pasticci, che potrà scegliere delle gomme tenere, ecco che qui c'è una piccola uscita di strada, ne hanno fatte un po' tutti, quindi non è da biasimare. Coulthard quando fa un magnifico tempo, perché lo ha fatto in condizioni di traffico, e quindi ci si chiede come mai prima non è riuscito a combinare qualcosa di giusto. Ecco qui l'incidente di Herbert
che
con
perde
Frentzen,
l'alettone ed esulta.
Quale è andato?
Esulta Mikaki.
Jim, great session for Damon Hill, but Damon, I bet you hadn't reckoned with that Benetton. Where did they find that speed from?
Well, I can't honestly say because I don't drive for them, but we'll, you know, we have to deal with that tomorrow. But they did a good job. But we really qualified, I think, very strongly, and we're dominating now the back row of the top 6, and in for a good helping of points tomorrow.
You've got a tremendous record around this track. You'd almost consider it, I suppose, your lucky circuit. You feeling lucky for tomorrow now?
Well, this is my worst qualifying position since I was in a Brabham, and I qualified 6th, so I think I can be proud of that one.
Thanks very much, Damon.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, our thanks to Damon Hill. Remember a couple of years ago, he nearly won the race in that Arrows, didn't he? But Mika Häkkinen, he hasn't been all that lucky in races over the last few races, has he, Tony? But brilliant again in qualifying.
Well, he has, but think about what he's getting over. A 200-mile-per-hour crash with a tyre delaminating. There are hundreds and hundreds of fans here from Finland who've been pouring in on extra Finnair flights to come and see this man in action. He hasn't let them down. There's something like about 30 buses coming down from the Baltic. There are 20,000 less seats taken up by the Germans, 40,000 seats more taken up by the Finnish fans who've come to see their hero. This is the man who cannot go back to Finland because he gets mobbed, he gets swamped. Now, it doesn't look like there's any effects there, does it, from that big crash in Hockenheim? With the usual incredible confidence, you know, exuberance, incredible control, and the technological edge, especially in qualifying, which McLaren and Mercedes have, to put him in that great pole position. And difficult with the power of the Mercedes round here. It's not an engine circuit. They've done very, very well. Well done, Häkkinen.
In the qualifying session, Eddie Irvine didn't get that much support from teammate Mika Salo, but a great performance from the World Championship leader.
Yes, it is, and Irvine has done an absolutely tremendous job, and he's shown how good he is in qualifying, and that's been his weakness. And that's what Ross Brawn said to you on the last programme here during the interview. We've got to work on this. So I'm just locking up there. This first run, which got him into second place, he was ragged. Look at that, soaring away at the wheel, and he said, I love the way I can keep moving at the wheel all the way through a lap here, way over the curb, not that far from the grass. That got him into an initial second position. So working very, very hard. By contrast, this second run, he's going back out to try and get second place back from David Coulthard. Much smoother. Look at that. Look at the line through turn 14 there. Look how much less of the road he's using. Silky smooth. He's put it all together. It looks like he's got a sort of ice pack down his back or something because he's so cool. And he just gets within 1/10 of Mika Häkkinen. That is a brilliant performance.
Yeah, best ever qualifying performance in Hungary for Eddie Irvine. And David Coulthard, Tony, right in there as well.
Yeah, fabulous performance from Coulthard. Not quite as good as he would have hoped or as he would have expected, but he didn't quite have that edge, but he's there backing up his teammate, unlike Mika Salo, who's down in that 18th place. That's going to be disastrous for Ferrari and the World Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, there was a bit of aggravation, wasn't there, with Damon Hill at Jordan after the last race when he took a unilateral decision almost to pull off the circuit, it seemed, but he really does go well here.
You talked about 1997 when he was here in the Arrows, an underpowered car with the Yamaha engine. He got it up to, he finally finished second. He overtook Michael Schumacher into that first bend behind us. There were roars from the crowd. He was absolutely brilliant. When it's a slow technical circuit like this is Monte Carlo without the rails, he's brilliant. He uses all the track, he uses his technology, he drives very, very hard.
Who's your verdict on for tomorrow?
It's a real tough one, this. I think it's going to be neck and neck. It might just be Ferrari through superior tactics.
We'll wait and see. Drop the old clipboard there. Well, let's get it back up again, shall we? Half-time in a football game going on at Old Trafford, Manchester United. Our build-up starting at 12:15, and the highlights just after midnight. Right then, Häkkinen poles apart yet again. Delivering tomorrow is what matters, and Eddie Irvine is right there. Bye-bye.